name is KVN McMillan. I'm originally from Northern California. I've been living in Dallas for a little over 2 years.
My name is George Battle III, and I am a resident of South Dallas Fair Park. I just heard the presentation for Fair Park's revitalization, and my thoughts on it is that it doesn't go far enough. It doesn't really explain or give vision to how the city and the Parks and Rec department that's within the city see themselves re-engaging the community surrounding that park to make that park more people-friendly, resident-friendly, but then also just making it a space that makes that whole area around South Dallas Fair Park become more of a revitalized neighborhood. As it stands right now, I have always seen the Fair Park grounds as separate from the neighborhood, not really a community park. And today they were saying that the park is a community park, and they want to put the park back in the Fair Park, but the vision that they have with the task force information really didn't speak more on that. And so that's what I'm hoping to get involved in.
The mayor appointed a task force last year to study Fair Park and to make recommendations about how to address some of the issues with it, struggling to find a year-round presence, with what can we do to optimize, the use of this great asset that's less than 2 miles from downtown. So the task force spent 11 months doing its work, studying Fair Park, studying the institutions that use Fair Park, and they came out with 3 recommendations for the mayor's consideration and for the city's consideration on potential changes that can be made at Fair Park. So the task force completed its work. It came out with those recommendations in September, and now the Park and Recreation Board is deliberating about those recommendations. So they're analyzing the recommendations. They have the opportunity to make some changes, and then they are going to pass that along to the City Council, and then the City Council will either approve or not approve what the recommendations are. Obviously, Fair Park, this facility is owned by the city. It's 277 acres, less than 2 miles from downtown, and it's surrounded by communities that are pretty much in need of economic revitalization. So the recommendations of the task force are going to impact the community. Either there's a couple of things that can happen. There could either be no change, it could be change that's harmful, or it could be change that's helpful. And so as we consider what those recommendations are, organizations like mine and groups of people that we're talking to, our perspective is we have an opportunity here. There's an opportunity, because the city is focused on Fair Park, to ask the question, what can best be done at Fair Park to optimize this resource in a way that positively impacts the community from an economic point of view. And so the task force recommended 3 major changes. One was to improve the access and the connectivity of the streets around Fair Park. So the signs, the streetscape, make it easier to navigate. If you're driving in from another part of town, make it easier to navigate your way around Fair Park. Second recommendation was to add more green space, because most of Fair Park is concrete, and it's parking lots and sidewalks and things of that nature. Not a lot of it is actually park space. So they recommended putting an 80-acre park in place of the parking lots along Robert E. Cullen Boulevard. But they also recommended to put 2 parking structures on either side of that park. The third recommendation by the task force was to appoint a nonprofit entity, a 501c3, to take over management of the park. Right now, the city manages Fair Park. It owns all these buildings and the spaces here, and they have lease contracts with different users at Fair Park, including the State Fair of Texas, which is the biggest user of the park. And so because the city sometimes isn't the best manager of those kinds of resources, and they've seen success in other models, like the zoo is a public-private partnership. The farmers market is a public-private partnership, and even Clyde Warren Park is a public-private partnership, meaning the city still owns that resource, but a private group manages the resource because, for whatever reason, sometimes a private entity has more expertise on how to optimize whatever resource that is. And so they're recommending that you turn over the management to a nonprofit group that takes over the management of all the different contracts and figures out a way to make this space operate more effectively. And so we think those recommendations, a lot of it is pretty good. We do have some trouble with the above ground parking structures. We would prefer to see that the parking structures go underground because the parking structures going above ground would definitely affect the community because, there would be large structures, large buildings that create more of a sense of blight, more of a sense of disinvestment because, for much of the year, if there's not much activity going on here, then those are going to be empty structures sitting empty like most of the other uses of the park. We just prefer that the land that is so valuable here gets the highest and best use, and we don't think parking is the highest and best use. We think there's a different solution for parking, to put it underground and to take the surface level land and turn it into other things. More green space, more businesses, or more activities, and more year-round, day-to-day usage to get more people to come and spend their time at Fair Park. The key decision makers are definitely our political representatives. So if the community wants to be involved and at the table with actually what is being done and what is being decided upon, then it would be good for the community to contact their council person, especially if they live in this district where Fair Park is, District 7, to contact the council person, Carolyn Davis, or their park board representative, Tiffany Young. And also, even if they live in other districts, find out who your council person is, find out who your park board representative is, and go to those websites, go to City Hall and find out where your council person contact information is. Contact your park board representative through the Park and Rec Department website and send them a note, call them up, let them know that you want to be involved, let them know what you think of the Mayor's Task Force recommendations and how it will affect you and your community, and let them know what you would like to see happen at Fair Park. We think there's an opportunity for this space to be used in a better way. We don't believe that the Mayor's Task Force goes far enough in saying what Fair Park ought to be. They did a good job of saying how they think Fair Park should be run and that the governance needs to be fixed, but they didn't really say how it should function or what it should look like in the next 10, 15, or 20 years. What we're interested in is getting people involved in a conversation that says, hey, we would like Fair Park to have more activity, to have more people, to have more of an economic generation happening here at the park so that it can drive improvement and investment throughout the surrounding neighborhoods. And so we want people to be involved in the process and what's going on to let your concerns be heard by our political representatives. So there will be more meetings and more community activity happening over the next several months as these recommendations are being decided upon. But what the community can do is to contact their political representatives and to stay tuned and to be involved with the different organizations that have an interest in what happens at Fair Park.